Welcome to another episode of MCEO Talk. I am your host, Vincenzo Landino. Joining me is my co-host, Ashley. And I have some great guests today. Today we're talking about travel. So it's totally different. It's our first show. It's a little bit more of a lifestyle piece. I'm really, really excited. I have Emily Thomas, I have Jen Leo, and I have Isabelle. And it's her birthday today. We were going to sing her happy birthday, but she's having issues. She's having some thunderstorms down south, so her connection's kind of a little wonky. She may join us. She may not join us. If she doesn't, it's okay. I have three fantastic ladies with me tonight anyway. So let's introduce yourselves. We'll start with Emily. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and I'll tell everyone about yourself.
So my name is Emily Thomas. I live in Seattle, Washington. I am a freelance marketing strategist, and I also write for the Huffington Post. So I do a lot of freelance marketing and social media marketing, and I was working for a film company called Still Motion for the past year and a half. So
nice. And honestly, I love watching your photos on your Instagram. Always make me like want to just get in a plane and just like start going everywhere.
Thank you.
I think you had what, Mount Rainier I think you were on it. It was like over the wing. It was just, it was awesome.
Oh yeah, that was an amazing. I got lucky with that shot.
You always get some cool shots. So
yeah. Thank you.
Jen, yeah, you're welcome. Jen, what's going on?
Hey everybody, I'm Jen Leo. I've been in travel for a long time. First as a book editor with Traveler's Tales. I edited the women's travel misadventure series called Sand in My Bra. There was about a 5-book series. And a little bit after that, I launched the travel blog with the LA Times in 2007. Wow. And was lead blogger there until we moved to London for a year. And I let go of the blogging, but kept the print column I had, the Web Buzz column, which most people know me for now.
Nice, nice. And Ashley, because Isabel's not here yet, I love when you introduce Hey Let's. So go ahead, because Hey Let's fits in perfectly with travel and experiences.
Yeah, of course. So my name's Ashley Pengilly. I lead social and community for an app called Hey Let's. We are a travel and social city guide based on experiences instead of places. So we rely on recommendations for things that you love instead of ratings and reviews to help match people with things that they're likely to enjoy.
And I love Hey Let's, and I obviously have been using it thanks to you, and that's how I got you on as my co-host. So I appreciate that. Let's jump right in. I've kind of waited for Isabelle, but let's just jump into the chat. Oh, look at that. Speaking of the devil, not really the devil, but it's her birthday. It's Isabelle's birthday. So everyone say happy birthday to Isabelle. Happy birthday, Isabelle.
Hi, thank you.
So introduce yourself before you lose connection. Let's get you introduced first.
Okay, we're having horrible thunderstorms here. I just got completely rained on. I am Isabelle Rohr, obviously. I am a content producer, creative producer, community manager, account manager, everything, all of the above, for BTC Revolutions, which is a social and digital agency. Yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up.
And she's an avid traveler, which is why she's on the show.
Yes.
So, all right, let's just start. Let's shoot it out there. But I want to know from you, ladies, why is travel important? What is travel? Why do people need to travel? Do you think it's important that people do that? And you ladies are all very busy. We're all very busy, but traveling is a whole other dimension of life. And people talk about it all the time, like, oh, you need to travel, you need to do this. But I want to hear from you, why is travel important? Jen. Jen.
Okay, I think the reason why I think it's important, and I think my answer today is probably changed than it did 10 years ago. I think it's important to step out of your personal bubble. We get so enwrapped in what we're doing right now and who we're with that when you cross borders or leave your comfort zone or leave your city, you're immersed in experiences that sometimes you would have never thought you could have ever imagined. And I think that helps people grow personally and helps them grow within their community as well, because you have a different look on life afterwards.
So true, so very true. And I'm sure everyone's outlook on travel changes through the years. And I thank you for bringing that aspect of it. How about Emily? Emily's always traveling. She's always all over the place.
I would say travel is important because, and I've learned this a lot through Instagram, just using the app more and being able to network with a lot of photographers and different influencers on social media. I think it's really important to actually go and meet people face to face. And I don't think I ever really experienced how powerful that was until I was able to go to Miami a couple weeks ago and meet one of my clients for the first time after working for him for 3 years. And so, I mean, just beyond just seeing the places, travel for me is about the people and the community and interacting with the people that I've had the opportunity to meet through social media. So I think it's really powerful to go to different cities and different countries and different states and see a different way of life. And I think it really enriches you in that way. So, yeah.
Ash, with Haylets and all that, have you got a new perspective on travel and experiences?
Yeah, so, with like the whole millennial generation spending more on experiences than they do on things, there's kind of this emphasis on like, we're young, but we want to live fulfilling lives. So a lot of people are exploring outside of their usual realms, or hey, material items aren't, that's not necessarily leading us to happiness. And so a lot of people are doing this travel that's inexpensive. It's in weird locations, but it's not that whole like luxury lifestyle. So, I haven't had the luxury of like really, really traveling over the last couple of years just because of work's just been, if I left for a week, it would be like the world imploded. But I just think that, travel really enriches you and gives you an outsider's perspective on, your life and how fortunate you are, but also kind of teaches you there's other cultures and other things out there that are interesting and, outside the box, things that you would never have dreamt of. And I think, everyone should get out and travel, even if it's, across the border or in another state, to just, explore what else is out there.
Yeah. Great point, because, yeah, Jen, I know. I told you I was going to cut you off, though. No.
Just know something's coming.
I know something's coming. I was going to say, I love what you said, Ash, where even if it's just across the border over to another state, and it's not necessarily, sometimes we get it it's kind of caught up in the idea, we need to travel, we need to go to Europe, we need to go to South America, we need to go to Africa, we have to go somewhere. And what about what about inside your own state? Sometimes, we don't look at our own state, and I know sometimes my own town. Since I've taken up, running, there's things I see that I would have never even seen. So it's like there's traveled. I think the word itself doesn't mean the same to everybody. You can travel within your means. You don't need to make it a big. It doesn't have to be beyond that. What about Isabelle? Let's hear from her. Before we hear from you, Jen, again.
I had a point that I was going to make, but then based on what you just said, I've got a totally different point to make. I recently took a road trip I have a 6-year-old daughter, and we took a road trip together for spring break this year, and saw parts of the country that I've never seen before that are only 4, 5, 6 hours away from me. I'm in Birmingham, Alabama. And so we drove through Asheville, did Blue Ridge Parkway, we went through Virginia, we made it all the way to D.C. and then came back down through the Carolinas. I had never been to Virginia before, and it was like this whole different world. I mean, it's unreal how diverse your own country is, and even like Vincenzo said, your own state. I don't know where a lot of things are in my own state, embarrassingly. So. Yeah, that's definitely important to know that you don't have to go, to these grand trips abroad or anything, you can
Yeah, Jen, make your point.
Yeah, well, I just, based on what Ashley said, so many people are strapped to their desk job and they can't leave, or they only have 2-3 weeks vacation. But at the same time, no better time than ever is you can be a digital nomad right now. People are becoming location independent,
Great
and
point.
they are working abroad, and I just love that. I love people empowering themselves by working as consultants or taking their jobs on the road.
No, it's a perfect point. Joel from Buffer, he's the CFO of Buffer. He did a whole. He's actually doing that right now. He's in the middle of, and he's blogging about his experiences. He's working abroad, so he's in Hawaii now for a couple of months, but he was in like Thailand and Australia, and he's all over the place. And he's working, and it's just really cool to see, like, hey, you know what, you're running a, startup, but you're running a company, and you're doing it all from a computer, and you don't have to be anywhere. And he's literally living on like Airbnb and Ubers and things like that. It's like the coolest thing ever. So how about some personal experiences? What does anyone have a favorite? I'm sure everyone's got a favorite.
Emily.
Emily's probably got some. Emily's got some cool trips. I always see them. So.
Yeah. I just wanted to echo what you said a little bit before. I can't remember who said it, but I made a New Year's resolution this year to have an adventurous heart, and I think that like being able to go to all these exotic places is really cool, but also exploring your own state. And it really took the liberty. And so most of my photos are from different national parks in Washington and Oregon and Montana and Canada. So I love the mountains and I love all of that kind of stuff. But I think that being said, I think one of the coolest places that I've ever been to is probably Thailand. Just seeing all of the colors there and getting to experience the culture. And I went on a house building trip there, and it was completely life-changing. So that's probably my favorite place that I've ever been to.
I want to go to Thailand. It's probably on my top 5. So now you might have just bumped it up.
That's good.
Jen, you just got back from some cool traveling. I don't know if that's your favorite, but what was your favorite?
I got back. I recently went to Cancun and had a spring break road trip, like Isabelle as well, with my 6-year-old in Arizona. So I'm trying to do a little bit of both. I'm trying to do local and abroad, but my favorite travel experience was when I experienced the true kindness of strangers. And I was on a train in Europe. I was doing some solo trips, and I was on a train, and I was in this car with these young women. We were all about the same age, and I said that I was trying to experience an Orthodox Easter because it seemed really different over there than where we were. And they talked me into going to Bulgaria, where they were from, in a town called Vieco Turnova. But as we got there, I asked one of them for a ride to the local hostel. When I got to the hostel, I found out that they didn't take plastic. There was no credit cards, cash only. And I was all out of cash. So I was in a little bit of a panic, and I said, there's got to be some expensive hotel or something around here where they take plastic. So she drove me up this hill to the most expensive hotel in this little town of Vieco Turnova, and they were going to take credit cards, and it cost 150 euros a night. And it was way more than I wanted to spend, but I knew that I had to just suck it up and consider it a learning experience because it was my own fault for running out of money. And the woman who was driving me, just this random person I'd met on the train, she said, I can't let you do this. And I looked at her, and I'm thinking, why? This is my mistake. Don't worry about it. And she said, 150 euros is a 1-month salary for a Bulgarian. And so she made a call to her dad and invited me to come home and stay with her. And I slept on the floor of their small apartment, which looked like a tenement building. It really looked like poor housing where we were, but I think it was just normal over there. anyways, I go to Western Union some money the next day to pay them back and to treat them. I took them out on a day of treats, bought them lunch, and they invited me back. They said, you have to have your Orthodox Easter. And so they invited me to go back to their grandparents' village and spend the whole Easter weekend with them. And it was amazing. We had Easter ceremony in this 100-year-old church where the only chairs that they had were in case the king or a president came by. And we had like this candlelight vigil where we walked around this old church and by candlelight, and an amazing experience that I wouldn't have had if I hadn't run out of money.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I think it gives you hope. It gives you hope for the rest of the world too. You're like, wow, this is crazy. But that's a really good story. I like it.
Thanks.
What about Isabelle?
I have a lot of favorites. It's so hard to choose. I would say, going back to why it's important to travel, and kind of that millennial mindset where you're exploring more than you are buying things. My family is from all over the world, and so it was always sort of a natural thing to travel because I have family everywhere. And when I was 13, I took my first trip abroad, and we went to Australia and stayed for a month all across Sydney, up and down the coast. And I mean, I have, I don't know, 100 relatives there or something crazy. And that was my first experience, outside of the States, obviously, but kind of being transported. And at that age, it's not your choice, for one. You're just sort of like taken, on these trips. So it's kind of more of a natural thing to me to consider, going to different places, or because I've always done it as a child and gone to some pretty far-flung places. So that's probably top of my list, just the whole Australia experience. And then I also had the opportunity to go to Germany. One of my friends was an exchange student at my high school, and her parents invited me to come stay with them for a few weeks after high school graduation. And when we got there, it was my friend's birthday, and her father paid for her and me, a surprise to her, to go to France and stay with their friends for a few days on the water, on the ocean. And then when we got to France, these Germans were staying within France said, "Would you like to go to Spain for the day?" And we're like, "Sure." So we drive to Spain and literally stay just like the afternoon, go to a museum, eat lunch, come back, and stay on the beach in France for a few days. So that's probably number two, one to two on my list.
Yeah, for me, I still have yet to experience. Well, I don't have a favorite yet. I have a lot of favorites, but I still want to drive Route 66. I want to go from Chicago to Santa Monica. So if anyone's listening and watching, I'm available. I've planned on making that trip by my 30th birthday, so I have till October, the middle, like end of October. So that's gonna happen. Whoever's listening, make sure you pay attention.
Hey, Vinny, when you do the trip, Road Trippers, at Road Trippers, it's a really great app for doing road trips.
All right, I'll have to.
Actually, on spring break, it's a great website and app.
I'm excited. I'm gonna make it happen. So I'll make sure I'll have MCEOtalk from the road. How cool would that be? I'll do it from the Grand Canyon.
That would be awesome.
Right.
Wi-Fi at the Grand Canyon? There's got to be.
Yeah, Wi-Fi
What's that?
would be necessary.
Wi-Fi? Probably no Wi-Fi.
Up there, right?
Yeah, right. What I was, Jen, you kind of mentioned it a little bit, and we kind of talked about it when you were talking about your favorite experience. But is there anything that you've learned while you've traveled? Is there anything that stands out in your mind more than anything else, besides the kindness of strangers? Because you kind of already brought that about, but what have you learned in your travels?
I think travel teaches me humility, and I've learned that more recently. And in that way, my perception of the world and people can sort of expand and shrink over and over again with different experiences. And I think I started thinking that and feeling that on a trip to Cuba. So I went to Cuba a couple years ago, and I was in Havana, and there were so many buildings and houses and structures in Havana that were literally crumbling. And buildings are always falling down in Havana. And I remember taking a ride on the Malecon, which is this oceanfront street and boardwalk. And here was this building that looked like it was barely standing up. And there was a middle-aged man standing out on the front porch, and he was sweeping. And he was just sweeping his porch in front of him. But of course, he had this amazing ocean view. And the people there were living off of like $20 a month or something. And it just really sort of made me more aware of the way that we live to excess here in the States, and maybe even more so where I live in Southern California.
Brian Fanzo says, great recommendation on road trippers. He has his set up for Friday. He's going from Arizona to Virginia, so he's going to be using that as well. But you know what you said, Jen, is so true. Like, we have, and I don't want to get into like we have, they don't have. I don't want to get into that conversation, but I think, for me, traveling has given me the you see how little there is elsewhere, and like Ashley said at the forefront of the entire conversation, it's about experiences. And I don't want to say it's millennials, because it's not necessarily millennials, but many of us see the need to have experiences over stuff and just accumulating things. I mean, listen, when you die, you can't take any of it with you. You can't pack your coffin full of junk, but you can, but experiences will live on forever. So, anyway, that was kind of my point. But go ahead, Emily and Isabelle, go ahead, jump in. Feel free to jump in on that one. What you've learned.
What you've learned. Isabelle, you can go first if you want to.
I can go first. I would say I think humility is a great point, but beyond that, since that's already been covered, I would say definitely kind of the obvious skill that you learn when you travel is resourcefulness, especially when there's a language barrier or when you feel like you're in a place that is so completely polar opposite from where you're used to. And even in a place like Germany, which I speak the language and had just started learning the language when I went for the first time, and I was not very good. And even it's a very Anglo country. It's not like it's some huge stretch from America. It's different, obviously, but I can think of many other places that are far more different. And so when you're kind of thrust in a situation, if there's any sort of uncertainty, or you don't know how to communicate, or you have to navigate somewhere that maybe you don't speak the language at all, but it can be very disorienting, and it forces you to acquire skills on the spot. I had to do that many times in Germany as an 18-year-old with poor German skills, and that I think that's experience alone sort of started building that resourcefulness skill set in me. So I take that with me, where I've been since. But yeah.
Yeah, and Brian Fanzo and Amanda are in the chat talking, and Brian said shit happens. Amanda said be adaptable. That's what they've learned from travel, is that stuff will happen. Things will, come up, and you need to just be flexible. And I think the more flexible you are, especially, in life, but when traveling, especially abroad, having language barriers, as Isabelle mentioned, and other things will come up. You need to be able to just roll with the punches. You can't be uptight and try to travel at the same time. You need to be able to learn from your experiences. Emily, I don't want to cut you off, but
no, you're fine. Yeah, I really like what everyone said, especially about humility and being able to learn how to adapt to things, because when you're abroad and you only have so limited, such limited resources. You kind of just have to learn how to just suck it up if something's going wrong. But I think one of the best lessons that I've ever learned from traveling is just that there's so much more than what we see every single day. So there's so much more than just what's going on in our own cities and what's going on in our own country. And it's really cool to be able to go and experience how people live their lives in other parts of the world and be able to really appreciate that and take part in it. And most of the traveling that I've done is for, some of it was for pleasure and some of it was for work. But some of the most rewarding trips that I've ever done have been service trips, and being able to go abroad and just know that there are things that are going on in other parts of the world that I can contribute to. So yeah, I would say that just it opens your eyes and it allows you to expand what you appreciate in the world. So yeah.
Ashley, anything to add? Ashley?
I don't know, like, I think travel, it's just an ongoing education of just yourself and what you enjoy. So I feel, when you go and you travel, you really discover yourself. And so I think that's, a really powerful reason for people to kind of just go out and explore is, to kind of learn who you are and, like, the things that you value and love. I went abroad for a little bit. I was in Germany for 3 months, was there visiting an ex-boyfriend, and we traveled, everywhere, and it was great, but, I came to learn, things that I really love, and, I didn't realize how much I loved trail running until, I was staying with him, and every day I'd go running, by the trails, and I just loved the scenery. And so I discovered that about myself. So then when I went back to school, I was like, okay, I need to figure out where all the trails are around here and go running, well, with someone else, not just where the mountain lions can eat me, but, go somewhere where I can enjoy the scenery and not die. So I think, travel, it's really eye-opening, and I just think that's one of the main things that someone can learn, is just more of themselves.
I want to give a quick shout out to Cody Stevenson. He's the new community manager for MCEOtalk, so he's handling the Twitter chat. Cody, thank you, buddy. Shout out to you. But Cody did a cross-country trip. And you know what's really – hold on, before we keep going, you know what's really funny is that Jen met Cody and myself through Meerkat, through our Meerkat experiences, and we've connected with Jen, and Jen is just awesome. So I want to kind of make that connection. But yeah, Cody made a trip from Southern California back home to Pennsylvania, and he did a whole about 2-week trip. He Meerkatted the whole thing. He'd gotten a sponsor to sponsor his data. And
hashtag tiny travel.
Hashtag tiny travel. So he got himself. This is really cool, right? So I know I'm digressing, but I don't. It's fine. He got this trailer, right? It had everything there. It had a kitchen and bed. It was like, I don't know, like 100 square foot, not even, of everything, like life. And there are 2 dogs. Him, his wife, and his 2 dogs. And they traveled all across the country. And I'll tell you right now, check out MillennialCEO.com for his first part of his article. He's going to chronicle the entire trip, but he took some amazing photographs. And there's, I was watching the Meerkat sessions, just incredible. The scenery, just everything was just amazing. And so I just wanted to give him a shout out because he's helping me on this now, and I love the guy. So thank you, Cody. Let's talk a little bit about the culture of different places you've been to. You can give me maybe one place that you thought had amazing culture. Let's stick to the positives, like, hey, so give us a positive experience, a positive culture, maybe the best spot you visited that had the best culture and whatnot. And then, you know what, we'll do 2 parts to that question. Best culture and best food. Go. Emily, come on. You had to me? You had to have good food somewhere.
So I'm from San Diego. I was born and raised there. So one of the places that I have visited frequently is Mexico. And I've been to a couple of other places in the world, but I love going to Mexico. I love how much they treat you like family down there. And it doesn't even matter if they know you at all. If you're hungry, or even if you're not hungry, someone will take you in and be like, come eat with our family. And there's like 10 people there. There's a ton of people there. And they just make you feel like family. And they just appreciate the littlest things, like things that I take for granted every single day. They appreciate it so much. And I'm going to tell a short story, but I remember there was a little boy. I was tutoring down there, and there was a little boy who would not read at all unless I was going to give him candy. And so I agreed to buy him candy. But when I finally gave it to him, instead of eating it really fast, which I thought he would do that, he was breaking it up and giving it to his other classmates. And it was the most life-changing experience I've ever had, and I just appreciated going to Mexico so much. And the food is amazing, especially the tacos. So I highly recommend going there. So yeah.
I had the best guacamole in Mexico.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
I did. Avocados were incredible.
Yeah.
Right. Jen, I think you've been to Australia, right? You were saying, I know we talked. I think you probably might have even said it right now, but
Yeah,
you had a pretty good experience in Australia.
I did, and most of it I think was people-focused. So I lived with my ex-boyfriend's family in Brisbane, Australia for about 6 months, and it was everything, but it was mostly by the way that they ate. Night after night after night, we would have these amazing, really long dinners out on the back porch. It didn't matter if we were having lamb chops or snakes or snags on the barbecue, but it started with beer, and then it led to wine, and then bottles of wine, and at the end of the night it was coffees and liqueurs, all the while we were eating dinner and talking and talking and talking. And after that, that's just my favorite way to have a meal, is over 6 hours with good people and good conversation. I was spoiled for sure.
Yeah, and it brings us to like really something else too. Where you mentioned it's the appreciation of friends, family, food, and life, right? Isn't that what we see when we travel? We get that appreciation, and with my family being from Italy, sometimes I wonder if they even work, because most of the time I'm texting them or calling them, and they're always like out playing soccer or drinking espresso, and they're never ever working. And it's funny because they're like, yeah, we worked for like a couple hours, and then they just go and enjoy life. And I'm like, my goodness.
But I also want to add a couple of tips. I want to add a couple of tips on how you can sort of experience food or new food, local farm-to-table food when you're away.
Well, give us those tips.
You might not think about it, but you can actually hire personal chefs to come and cook in your kitchen. So say you're staying at a home away or an Airbnb, or you have a rental place, you can have a personal chef come into your place. And I've done that in Italy, I've done it in Hawaii, and it's an amazing experience, especially when you have a full table, like a multi-generational trip, or you just have your whole family there, or even just for 2 people, but I've always done it in really large groups. Also, kind of like photo walks, where you are taking a tour of a place through a walk, they also have those for food. And a friend of mine, Jody Ettenberg, has a website called Jody Eats, JODIEATS.com, and she wrote the Food Traveler's Handbook, and she leads photo walks and food-focused tours. I think mostly in Asia, in Southeast Asia, but it's just, there's so many different ways you can experience food. Also, Eat With, the website eatwith.com, where you can go to somebody's house and have a meal prepared there, whether it's your own city or your own state or a different country. So there's all these different ways to experience food and have food experiences that maybe weren't there a while ago.
I like it. I'm going to call you up anytime I make a trip. I'm going to call you up for some tips. Isabelle, how about yourself?
Are you really asking me what my favorite food experience is traveling? It's like the hardest question.
Best
ever.
culture, favorite food.
Yeah, that's also an impossible question. I know I've used Germany a couple times as an example. That's probably my favorite food. I'm like a meat and potatoes girl. But I also have been to Costa Rica a couple times. People there are amazing, and that very family focused and giving and mine is yours kind of mentality. You just feel very kind of taken care of in a really sincere, genuine way. So that's pretty high up on my list as well. Australia, obviously, I was with my entire family, so I'll always love that culture. I also, on the list of places that I want to go that I have not been, I am also Lebanese, and I've never been to Lebanon, and I have no family left there. And I have many friends from Lebanon, but obviously family, but nobody lives there. Culturally, I mean, that's like the food of my family. That's what we cook. That's what we learned to cook, and it's a huge part of the culture of my family. So that would be kind of my next stop, culture-wise.
Lebanon. Lebanon sounds like somewhere interesting to go. I've never been. I don't know. Has anyone else ever been to Lebanon? Can we give Isabelle some tips on Lebanon? Anyone out there in Twitter world? All right, we're gonna have to get her some tips on Lebanon. I think I just muted Ashley too, totally accidentally. Oops. I think everyone had some great points, and really, I think, and you can really find amazing things about any culture when you travel. I've always found something, no matter where I've traveled, whether it's within the United States, out west, south, Midwest, whether it's been to Canada, whether it's been to Mexico, whether it's been to the islands, you always find something different about the cultures that you're like, wow, that's an amazing way to look at life, and that's really an amazing way to live. I mean, going back to the points that we brought up before in terms of culture, there's the focus is on different things. So here where we are, we get so caught up in our day-to-day minutia that we sometimes forget what else is out there. But how about because we're talking about social media, or because we're on social media, because most of us have some sort of social media aspect to what we do, do you use social media when you travel? I know Emily does because I see it. And how do you use it? Like, are you using it, is it professionally? Is it just for fun? Do you disconnect? I know a lot, there's been this big disconnect. I know Cabela's is doing this whole digital disconnect day. Get out there and just like disconnect from your phones and from everything electronic. Are you doing that when you travel? So let's start with Isabelle.
I'm a little bit old school. When I travel, at least, like for example, when we went on the spring break trip, I actually ordered on Amazon one of those big atlases that you used to take with you on family road trips, because it's like, it's like a necessity for me for road trips. My dad's like navigator when we would drive across the country. Of course, I literally probably touched it twice in an entire week, and many, many, many hours on the road. And also, the learning curve's a little bit off for a 6-year-old. But so, I connect with people when I'm traveling. Obviously on social media, I have friends in just about every country you can name. And so, it's kind of given for me to be connected always, but I wouldn't say I rely on social media, or there aren't any like digital tools that, unfortunately, that I kind of can't live without. I know there are plenty, but I like to kind of be more off the grid if I can, and really like experiencing kind of the pure travel experience.
Yeah, so, and I know Emily, like I keep bringing it up, and I probably sound like a broken record, but you're always on Instagram. You're on Instagram when you travel, and honestly, like I totally live vicariously through your Instagram because
thank you.
It's just like the coolest photos. So just tell everyone a little bit about it.
So I'm a photographer, and I've had this great opportunity to meet a lot of other photographers through Instagram. And I have friends in all this, like so many of the big cities in the United States and around the world. And I specifically plan my trips to places where I know that I have photographer friends there. And it has been, so while I'm in the place, I try to just spend time with whoever I'm there with. But it is so cool to be able to document that not only do these people show me cool places through Instagram, I get to have amazing friends that I will probably have for the rest of my life. And I get to experience these really cool places with people who live there. And a lot of times when you travel, you are just a person who's kind of passing through. You don't have all the memories and all the important, like, know all the secret stuff about a location. But the cool thing that I've seen with social media is that I can tweet something out and say, hey, do any of you guys live in Orlando? Like, I have no place to stay. And I had someone message me right away and say, yeah, you can come and stay with me, which my mom, I didn't tell her that part of it. But it was cool to be able to experience Orlando and these other places from someone who lives there and someone who uses social media, and we're able to show people that you can build community through social media. So I use it all the time for travel. I am a big advocate of it for sure. So
I have a follow-up question, if I could.
Yeah, sure.
Are you trying to take my job?
Maybe. It's my first show. I gotta pace myself. Do you guys create your own hashtag, or like how do you kind of index your? Because now that you mentioned Instagram, I was like, duh, I use Instagram for everything, especially traveling. But what's your take on that? Just, I mean, I have a personal view on it, but you know, how do you kind of sort your travels in a way on social, or catalog them? I mean, like to be able to search for them or connect with people.
I always geotag all of my locations, so that people can see if they ever like where I've been. They have the opportunity to go into my Instagram and say, oh, I really like where this photo was taken. I want to go visit that place. And so I always make that available to people so that they can know where I've been. I don't do it while I'm there because I feel like it's very dangerous to do that as a woman, so I don't recommend that. But I always do it after, and I upload all of my photos there. I don't really use hashtags that much, to be honest with you, on Instagram. I just try to geotag my locations, and also I take photos with a lot of people who live in those locations. So it attracts a lot of their audience when I do that. And it shows people some of the big photographers in those cities. So that's usually what I do with Instagram.
Cool. Good points, yeah.
Vinny, do you want me to add one?
Yeah, absolutely. No, go for it. Go ahead, please.
I'm already of the same mindset of everybody. My Instagram isn't quite as strong, but I agree with everybody, and I think everybody who's on social media is a big fan of sharing. The thing I wanted to add is it can be such a fantastic safety measure. And so I used Facebook, or Facebook used me, my community used Facebook when we were in Costa Rica, and there were massive fires in Southern California, actually in Carlsbad where I live. And people, we were unplugged most of the time, but a few text messages came through, I think via Facebook, and people were checking to see if I was okay because they didn't know that I was out of town. And so from there, we were able to check in on Facebook and let all the people that we're closest to know that we were okay. So I think that's one thing that gets overlooked is just letting people know where you're okay. And yeah, but it also leads to one of my favorite ways of traveling. I was really lucky this one time I got to do a crowdsourced trip for Vail Resorts when I was doing an Epic Moms consulting work with them, and so we crowdsourced a trip for my family to Lake Tahoe, and I thought it was brilliant, and I would just love to do more of that, where I reached out to my Twitter followers and the brand's Facebook audience and blog audience, and we put out, here's me, my husband, and my daughter, here are the things we liked, where should we go? And then we went and did the things that people suggested, and it was just so much fun to be doing that, both ahead of time and live in the moment.
Yeah, and I know like Rafael Hernandez made a comment about, and this isn't necessarily travel, but you know, how social media and the Nepal recovery efforts, and you know, they were setting alerts to that, you know, confirm that your friends were okay and things like that. So I think social media is huge in that regard, and I don't want to make that the focus of this discussion. But again, social media is so important in many ways. You may use it as a photography app. You may use it as just ways to find new people to hang out with. Like me, I'm so friendly and open. Like I would tweet and just be like, oh my God, I just made like 30 new friends and God knows where. And so I love that aspect of social media, but I also take a little bit of what Isabelle said in terms of like, you know what, if I'm going to go experience things, I'll take photos, I'll post later. Like I'm not going to go and necessarily post real time live, unless again, you know, Jen, you might have a different viewpoint, or even, you know, Emily, because you may either be getting paid for it or it's part of a different agenda. But for someone who's a pleasure traveler, it's a little different. So anyways, how about tips? Do you guys have tips for new travelers? So someone who's never I have a friend who's literally never been outside of like 3 states, and he's only done it for work, and he's never seen anything. Connecticut is really all he's ever seen, and he's barely seen anything in Connecticut either. So he literally has no travel experience. What would you tell someone like him? And actually, funny story, he just called me before this chat, and he's going to Switzerland in a week, or in a month, I'm sorry. So what would you give him as a tip? I got a person, look at that.
Ashley,
I will give him these tips. They better be good.
Ashley, tell him how Hey Let's can get him out of his house and activity-driven right from where he is right now.
Yeah, so I mean, with Hey Let's, you know, it's a social application, so he's able to connect and meet with other people who've had experiences there. So it's a great way to kind of bond on a more personal level, and also get straight to like, what should I do? So with Hey Let's, you know, everything's a recommendation. It's not like, hey, don't go here because it has like the worst like pasta. No one wants to know that. So I think with traveling, I think, you know, one of my biggest recommendations is to get inspired by something that you're, you know, intrigued by. And, you know, with our app, you can travel around the globe. You can find things that, you know, hey, you're going to Spain and, you know, you're going to do the usual. You're going to go see all the landmarks. But, you know, to really experience the culture, you want to step outside and see what other locals recommend. So I think, you know, I forget who, it was a TED Talk, was talking about, you know, how some of these major destinations are being, you know, they're destroying travel for everyone because it's getting so oversaturated that, you know, the experience is actually kind of lame. So I think for anyone who's like going to go out and experience anything, they need to step out of the box and they need to start looking for things that aren't on, you know, travel like tours or, you know, big destination, you know, trips. Look deeper, and Hey Let's really helps you, you know, explore that that aspect. I've tried TripAdvisor. It's a little bit harder because you have to wade through a lot of negative. you have to wade through a lot of negative Nancy's, and you have to figure out, okay, do I agree with this negative Nancy or this negative Nancy? So, you know, use Hey Let's. You'll get inspired to check some stuff out. And I know that we've got some experiences in Switzerland. It's not one of our major metro, obviously, one of our major countries, but
not yet. They're going. So what about Jen? What about you? What kind of tips? Let's stay away from social media apps and anything like that. What tips do you have for travelers? I know Nikki, one of our past guests, she said be aware of laws and places where you shouldn't go, whatever that may mean, if traveling internationally. What do you think?
Well, I think I'm also following hashtag MCEOtalk, and everybody was all over the eating topic.
Cheese. I have 3 pounds of bocconcini in my fridge right now. If you don't know what that is, it's mozzarella, and I have 3 pounds of it in my fridge. So for the cheese conversation, I should be eating cheese right now.
Okay, but let me just recommend a couple other sources. a couple other sources, because, I mean, when people are traveling food first, they really can explore local places, and they don't have to cross borders. So there's this great website called eater.com, and you can find out the hottest, newest, coolest restaurants to try in big and medium-sized cities through Eater, and also an app called Chef's Feed. And I love Chef's Feed because what they do is they take chefs of restaurants, and those chefs recommend dishes that at restaurants where they go eat out in a specific city. So it's all based on city and chefs who are already popular with trendy restaurants, but it gets to, they're not all about trendy restaurants, they're about little holes in the wall, just specific entrees or dishes that these chefs love. And so for all of our MCEOtalk fans who are into the food, and for your friend who can't travel really far, check out those resources for sort of experiencing culture or experiencing your local place.
Nice, excellent. And how about let's hear from the other two ladies here, Emily or Isabelle. Tips for new travelers. What would you tell them?
I would probably say, I guess a buddy system is good. Bring a friend, make a friend. Like I always like reach out. You know, I like I said, I have friends in every country pretty much, but I always, if I'm going somewhere, even if it's like Virginia or somewhere, like I just went, I always put out kind of an all-call, like, does anyone know anybody that, you know, would show me, you know, where to eat, what to do, you know, what to see, and that's how I've made some of best friends, is, you know, my best friends globally is actually like being connected offline, you know, with some of my friends and kind of, but you have to seek that out yourself, obviously. People aren't just going to offer it up to you unless you have an interest in doing that. And then I guess the other thing, your friend is a man, not a woman, I think I heard you say.
It's a man, yes, it's a man.
Safety first, no
it's
matter
a man, baby.
But obviously women have to be a little bit more cautious. There, I read it. I wish I could remember where it was. It might have even been BuzzFeed, but there was a great list on like tips for women that are traveling, especially when you're alone. Like things that you would never think of that are pretty awesome. But yeah, I think the laws and kind of the safety stuff is so different everywhere you go. The awareness, like, you know, I mean, it's such a no-brainer, but like wearing your purse in front of your body, or like holding the strap in case it gets sliced off, you know what I mean? There's little things like that you don't think of. It's actually, and had at least a couple €100 in it. And so, you know, it does happen, and a lot worse happens. So I would say buddy up, make friends offline, and be aware of kind of the safety customs and laws. Yeah.
When I was a younger solo women's traveler, I used some female-only women's hostels, and that, you know, it was like my first time solo traveling, and that sort of helped me sort of bridge that gap, because once you get a little experience under your belt, you know, some of the traveling smart things sort of come to you. But I was in Amsterdam and found that. I also, a great thing that I tell all sorts of young travelers, women or men, is carry a little bit of local currency in your wallet as an emergency stash, not in your spending area, but like if you ever need to get out of a tough situation and you're in a big city and you need to like leave a bar because maybe somebody's hitting on you a little too much and you just need to get out of there, you can whip out that spending cash into a cab as quickly as you possibly can to just get out of the situation.
I would actually recommend that for any city that you're in.
Yeah.
You're out of town. 20 on you at all times. Come on, guys.
Interesting tips. We got a lot of interesting tips here. So anyone that's watching that's never traveled before, I mean, hope you're listening, because I got this fabulous panel giving us dropping tips, travel bombs. And Emily, I want to hear from you before we wrap up. It's the top of the hour. We started a little late, so
Yeah.
grace period.
I think it's that you can, really get to take advantage of all the great things that are in the place that you're going to. And also, there's a lot of really great travel bloggers out there, and depending on what kind of traveler you are, they can cater to your needs. So I know a lot of, because there are some people who just like to go and see the attractions that everyone sees, and there are also people who just like to go into all the hole-in-the-wall places, and there's a ton of different kinds of travelers out there, and there's a lot of great travel bloggers that cater to those different niches that have been to all these different countries and can give you the ins and outs of different places to check out, things to watch out for, what things to do. And then also just to echo the other women, have a buddy and never be alone, especially as a woman traveler. And I know I brought this up before, and just don't be, I never lie anywhere. I use social media for all the time. Never lie, never share where I am, because I just feel like it's very dangerous to do that, especially if you have a big audience on social media. So just research where you're going, and also be very cautious about what things you're sharing online. So, yeah.
Great points. No, great points, everybody. I'm going to skip our life hack for this evening. I know Ashley's sick of answering that because she has to answer it every week, and so I'm gonna skip the life hack. I think we did some travel hacks at the end, so to be respectful of everyone's time, we will do away with that for next week. So next week, everyone watching, I will not be on the show. Yeah, Ashley, get excited. I will be traveling, and I will not be around. So Ashley's going to take over the show. She will have a guest or a guest co-host and a great panel and topic. Look for that later this week. On behalf of a Millennial CEO, Ashley and myself, thank you, ladies, for joining us, and thank you, everyone, for watching. This is another episode of MCEOtalk. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Cindy. Thanks, Ashley.
Thank you.
Bye.